There was a lot of discussion about fees and where they're going. There was some discussion if a fella had more than one stall, whether he could get a price break. So it was a good exchange, I thought. And there were some good comments, and hopefully at the advisory level, and some of those will be taken into account, the policies manual.
Okay, so some modifications were suggested by the body, or
Well,
not?
sure, there were a lot of suggestions on the fees.
By the Public Works Finance Committee, I mean.
No, the Public Works Finance took Kathleen's report and did we say exactly? Forwarded on to council, and we accepted the report, forwarded on to council, and accepted the fee structure as they had been finalized during the budget hearings.
Okay, okay. Are there people here tonight who want to speak about this issue? And have you come to the lectern and state your name and address for our record? Try to be brief in your remarks, and we do have some notes from the Public Works Finance Committee meeting, so if you spoke there, it's likely that the council's had a chance to see those, but please come on up and tell us what you think.
Joanne Manita, 203 South Howard. And I greatly appreciate the fact that the council is correcting the situation of not having discussed the fee increases with the vendors prior to having the budget hearing. And I'm assuming you're going to be you're already asking serious questions about fee increase in budget. So I hope it won't be just, oh, yeah, it was okay, let's go with it. Just let Joanne vent a little bit. The farmers market is dearly loved by the community, prized by the city and the Chamber of Commerce, both of whom brag about it in brochures and tell people that this is what makes Moscow unique and livable. The values are social, cultural, health, sustainable, and economic. And I say all this because we are spending taxpayers' money on the market, obviously, and I think we're getting a very good value for it. 40% of the seasoned vendors are local, but all vendors pay Idaho sales tax. All help bring people to downtown Moscow who would not otherwise be there. A lot, as seen in the RMA report from 2011. About 3,000 people say that they will shop downtown in addition to the market, which is fantastic. And plus, it's been pointed out that at least 3 permanent Moscow businesses, Wheatberries, Patty's Kitchen, and Panhandle Bakery, started in the market and then became permanent businesses. The success of the market, as our strategic planner has already noted, is that it's more than a buy and sell situation. It's the overall atmosphere of community building and interaction and good feeling that makes it the best in the state. And I credit that with the management of City Council, the excellent work of Kathleen and Barry in attending to all the details and trying very hard to be fair, and the customers who clearly love the market. So that's why I think it's so important that any increase of fees should be done in an open way, not just seeing what some other market charges. Coeur d'Alene charges $300, so we can do that. Or dividing it out and saying, well, it's only $12 a week and vendors can afford that. I think it has to be done for a reason. It has to be done in discussion, and it has to be done with consideration of maintaining the balance of the market. Even though city intentions have been good, the discussions have been very frustrating. First of all, as you know, no one told the vendors about the increase. Second of all, they were told it was 20% later on after it was already passed, and then it turned out it's 55%. So then we had an advisory board meeting to ask why, and we were told about the size of the spaces as though, and it looked like that had something to do with the fee, the question that Walter asked. Now we find out that had nothing to do with the fee at all. And then we were told about all the increased costs for moving the market and police costs and so forth, as though that had something to do with it. And then we find out that had nothing to do with it at all. In fact, we discussed the fee structure for an hour at least with the Finance Committee, talking about the fact that moving the market increased the costs. It wasn't until the end of the meeting when Gary came in and said it had nothing to do with that. It's because we want to gain back more of the expenses that we're paying in salaries in the arts director salary. Nobody else seemed to know that. Kathleen didn't mention it, the city council people didn't mention it, and Don Palmer, who was sitting there, didn't mention it. They were all talking about increased costs, and that's why at one point we all said, oh, well, let's move the market back and then it won't cost as much. And Wayne gave us a warning about trying to do that. No one said that has nothing to do with the situation. If it had nothing to do with the situation, why didn't anybody know that? Why didn't anybody ask that question? So the problem with raising the fees 55% is a steep increase on top of the upheaval that has already gone on the past year. Some vendors can afford it. Some vendors use that whole 15 feet. They use that, the produce vendors especially, put their products clear out to the end. A lot of vendors do not use the extra space, and a lot of vendors cannot afford it. Especially the small vendors, a lot of whom are local, for an extra $100 is a lot of money. And I want to point out vendor fees already pay for the market coordinator's salary entirely, the office help, and she would be working anyway, but it pays for part of that. Equipment, musicians, tech support, food stamp assistance, and publicity. Now, paying for the costs of the director's salary and the police is perfectly valid. It should have been part of the discussion from the beginning, and I hope you will open it up and see that you could work toward that goal in a stage 1 or 2, not go 55% all at once, or you could have a graduated fee for some who cannot afford the large increase. Now, I had a question that Walter already asked, which how much more are you going to raise? You already have expanded the market, so you have 80 spaces. You have a lot of new spaces, which if you rent them out, will increase the, increase the market income without any increase of fees. And if you increase the seasoned vendors' fees by 55%, you're going to get at least $7,000 more dollars, not $2,500. And that's not even talking about looking at the walk-on fees. So a smaller increase would give you your $2,500 in a blink. So I hope you'll seriously look at these and consider your smaller vendors. You want diversity at the market. You don't want it all to be large vendors. You want to give the smaller guys a chance to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Any questions?
Council members, any questions for Joanne? Okay, thanks. Others who'd like to speak about this issue? Please state your name and address for our record.
Sure.
I'm Betta Bunzel, and I live at 830 South Lynn Street in Moscow. And I've been a vendor for, this will be my 13th season, and I primarily sell vegetables, and everything's grown locally. It's really a commitment of love. I do it because I love the work. And so the finances are a consideration, and it's a concern to me that the policies are well worked out and that we attend many meetings, and then by the discretion of whoever decides at the time, these rules that were worked out needn't be followed necessarily. I know there was a public hearing and I did not attend that, so I'm at fault for that, but I think it's the general direction of the market that concerns me. We have something that's really valuable, and I think all of us pretty much agree when things aren't broken, don't try to fix them too much. And that's what I'm concerned about. The fees are a concern for me, but also it's this idea of resale on vegetables. It was brought up by one of the very dedicated produce vendors who brings fruit, that his family planted fruit trees 45 years ago with the intention of having this beautiful fresh fruit at a given time. And when we start looking at what are the reasons that people come to farmers market, I think it's for the quality of food that's been recently harvested. And it's just this whole dynamic of get bigger. I'm concerned about it becoming an outdoor grocery store rather than what we have at this time. So thank you for listening. And I know this is just a very small part of what all of you folks have to do, so thank you for your considerations.
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge we did receive your email also from earlier today. Thank you. Anyone else care to speak to this issue? Okay. Council members, this is, you see the recommended action here or the possibilities. How would you like to proceed? Walter,
A question for Gary, if I may.
please.
Ms. Minuta's comments, where did the fee increase come from? I did not catch it. I didn't catch it in the fee structure. I can only presume that no one else did, unless one of the council members or the mayor would like to say, I saw it and thought it was fine and didn't say anything. We've admitted that we had a policy that we would inform the vendors for anything over, I think, 10% or something like that, and we 5%, and we didn't do that. That was a mistake, and we've admitted it. But where did the fee increase come from? These things don't just happen.
No, but one of the things the council has directed staff to do is to look at the cost of doing business, if you will. If you'll recall, we went through the same effort several years ago with the swimming pool. If you recall, there was a lot of hidden costs that were being attributed or not being attributed to the swimming pool, yet were costing, for instance, maintenance, supervision, that sort of thing. So we brought those costs to the council and started accounting for the actual cost of operating the swimming pool. Over the last several years, Kathleen has brought forward requests for staffing, requests for additional hours, and different programs. And in that, one of the things that we do as management is ask department heads to account for their time and bring the actual cost of providing the service. It's nothing but cost accounting or project accounting, if you will. Bringing that forward, looked at the cost and the subsidy that Farmers Market was receiving, what it was costing to have Farmers Market. So at that point, there was and I don't know the exact history of the fee increases, but a fee increase was brought 1 year, then there was a year or two without fee increases, then another fee increase was brought, and it was brought to the council and proposed. Council approved it. So no, it wasn't a direction from the council to increase fees a certain amount. And one of the things that we've requested in the past and would ask again at some point, and we should probably take a look at, is what does the council wish to capture in the fees for the farmers market? And I think what Kathleen tried to do, and what she did do, was bring forward a proposal that captured more of what it cost for the farmers market. As I indicated, and I appreciate Joanne's comment, it's not entirely accurate, at least in my recollection. The fee increases were not put in to recapture the cost of the arts director's salary. They were put in to take the actual amount of time the arts director was devoting to farmers market, which was a project, and so it could be properly accounted for. Then you had, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, you have a farmers market manager. You have all of the other costs associated with farmers market. For instance, and the council's already picked up on this, the overtime or the flex time that public works crews do to go down, whether it is Main Street or it is blocking the parking lot for Jackson Street. Those are costs that before had not been allocated to farmers market. They were absorbed in the street department. So we have started to allocate those costs appropriately where they're generated. So that's what you see happening. And what it did, unfortunately, is it showed the actual cost of putting the market on and showed the deficit that was being subsidized every year. It was just an attempt to try and equalize that somewhat. As you can see, it's not going to come close to offsetting the entire cost of the market.
Well, also, just to clarify, Walter, there was, in the fee resolution, when a fee increases by that amount, it's highlighted in the document for the council's consideration. And I think people were looking at the dollar amounts perhaps more than the percentage amounts and not thinking it was as critical as that. More concerning to me is the process, because we, need to rely on following our own rules and guidelines in terms of notification and engagement and those kinds of things. And I think that was part of this discussion here. In many cases, it may not be the actual dollar amount. And 55% sounds like a lot, but in actual dollars, it may not be, huge for all parties, but it may be substantial for some.
If
So,
I may.
yes, please.
And that's exactly probably what's got me bothered a little bit. I fully agree with what Gary said. If anybody, around here believes in cost accounting and wants to know what things cost and it'll see at least what's really happening to us, I've got to be me, I guess. But I just feel like we're getting a whole lot more pushback than $2,500 worth. I wish you could tell me that, well, Walter, the fee increases, are necessary because of this, and it's going to generate an additional $15,000, I'd feel a lot better about this. The amount of irritation that we seem to have created with the vendors is in my mind at least not worth $2,500.
If I may.
I wish you'd tell me we were making a lot more money off the increases.
Gary?
I can't tell you that the dollar amount is that significant, but it does bring some equality. As was noted up there, some fees are increasing, some fees are decreasing. I will tell you that farmers market has always been a very spirited conversation. If you were here when Dina Heath was arts director, she brought a fairly significant, I believe it was about a 10 or 15% fee increase to the farmers market when it was still in the Jackson Street parking lot, and the abuse that she took and the negative comments were such that essentially those fee increases were repealed. And so it is not, any time the fees are increased, with all due respect to the vendors, you're going to hear about it, and that's as it should be. But it is never a really smooth process. There's always a spirited debate about what are we trying to do, what should the fees be, should we be compared to other folks, or should we have some other driving force behind the fees? And again, the point I wanted to make is that most of these costs were present when the farmers market was in the Jackson Street parking lot. They haven't increased significantly because of the move to Main Street. They're merely being accounted for now.
Okay, looks like Tom has a comment.
Okay,
question.
so I've got devices and paper.
Okay,
and stuff.
Don.
All right, so this year, for 2013, the requested, approved, adopted budget
2012,
for
Yeah.
fiscal year 2013, which
Right.
started on October
Right.
1st of 2012. So 2013, it's 27,500. 27,500 is the anticipated farmers market fees. Last year, the farmers market fee was 24,720 that was adopted. The actual for 2011 was 24,644. So those two are pretty close years. And the 2010 actual is 20,795. So that went up a little over, or a little under $4,000. And then this year it's going up, it's proposed to go up a little over $2,500. So, but if I calculate out the fee changes, I get more than $2,500. So if I recalculate and say, if we charged $250 per booth, then we would, it looks like the difference would be, closer to that $2,500. So, it's possible that the change is more than that, or maybe we have more booths, or I don't know. I mean, we don't have the exact analysis of numbers of booths in 2013 as opposed to 2012, and the differences in fees potentially collected. But I think we could probably do it with less. But my question that I have, and I asked Gary this last week, and I don't know the answer yet, but when we pass a fee resolution, must we charge the amount that we have listed in that fee resolution, or can we charge that amount or anything less? So that's the question I